Imagine this. You're crouched low behind a coral ridge on a Pacific island in 1944. The air is thick with humidity and cordite. Sweat runs down your spine and pools beneath the straps biting into your shoulders. Strapped to your back is a steel tank filled with fuel. Not gasoline exactly, but close enough that you don't want to think about it too much. It weighs more than 30 kilograms when full, and it turns you into a walking target. You are the flamethrower. Every man in your platoon knows what that means. You carry the one weapon capable of flushing the enemy out of caves and bunkers that rifles, grenades, and artillery can't touch. You also carry something else, an unspoken understanding that your life expectancy is shorter than everyone else's. Because if a single bullet hits the wrong place, you don't just die, you disappear in fire. Early in the war, no one told you how fragile this thing really was. The tanks on your back look solid. Steel cylinders, hoses reinforced with canvas and rubber, valves machined tight. They look industrial, reliable, safe. They are none of those things. Inside the tanks is a volatile mixture. Thickened fuel designed to cling and burn, pressurized with nitrogen. One puncture, one spark, one round from a rifle traveling faster than sound. That's all it takes. Veterans would later say the explosion wasn't always loud. Sometimes there was no dramatic fireball, just a sudden, blinding flash. A roar like a furnace door slamming open. Heat so intense it steals the air from your lungs before your brain even registers pain. And you never hear yourself scream. On islands like Tarawa, Saipan, and later Iwo Jima, flamethrower operators were used as shock troops. You were pushed forward with engineers and demolition teams. Your job was simple in theory. Advance, aim, burn the opening, move on. In reality, it meant stepping into a kill zone. Japanese defenders learned quickly. They didn't aim at your chest. They didn't aim at your helmet. They aimed at your back. At the tanks. At the hoses snaking from the pack to the nozzle in your hands. You feel it before you see it. The snap of incoming fire. The crack of rounds hitting rock inches from your head. The metallic slap as bullets strike the tank frame. Every hit sends a jolt through your spine. Every second you expect the next impact to be the one that ends everything. There is no armor, no protection. The steel is thin, designed to hold pressure, not stop bullets. A rifle round can punch through it. A machine gun round will tear it open. Shrapnel from a mortar doesn't even have to hit directly. The men around you know it too. They spread out. Not because doctrine says so, but because standing too close to you could get them killed if you go up. The isolation is immediate. You are surrounded by comrades, yet completely alone. You advance anyway. The smell is constant. Fuel vapors, burnt rubber, oil. The nozzle in your hands is warm from previous bursts. When you squeeze the trigger, a tongue of fire leaps forward, roaring like a living thing. The heat reflects back into your face. Your eyebrows singe, your eyes water. For a few seconds, you feel powerful, invincible even. Then the firing intensifies. Enemy rifles crack faster now. You hear the sharper bark of machine guns. You are no longer just another Marine or soldier moving through the chaos. You are a priority target. Every enemy within sight understands what you represent. Death by fire. And so they focus everything on you. Later survivors would say the fear wasn't constant panic. It was worse than that. It was controlled terror. A tight, choking awareness that never went away. Every step, every breath, every second your back was turned to the enemy. Some men tried to rig extra protection. Sandbags tied to the frame, spare helmets hung over the tanks, improvised armor made from scrap. It helped with shrapnel sometimes. It never helped enough. Because physics doesn't care about courage. When a bullet penetrates a pressurized fuel tank, the result isn't always immediate ignition. Sometimes the fuel sprays out in a fine mist. Sometimes it coats your uniform. Sometimes there's a half-second delay. Just long enough for you to realize what's happened. Just long enough to understand that you're already dead. And that knowledge, more than the heat, more than the enemy, was what truly haunted the men who carried fire on their backs. The cruel truth is this: the flamethrower was never designed with your survival as the priority. Early war models were rushed into service. Engineers focused on one thing: projecting fire far enough to clear bunkers and trenches. Everything else came second, especially the man wearing it. The fuel tanks on your back are thin-walled steel, not armor, not hardened plate, just enough metal to hold pressure and keep weight manageable. Because if the system is too heavy, you can't move fast enough. And if you can't move, you're dead anyway. So the compromise is made, and you are the compromise. Inside the tanks, the fuel is thickened with additives so it sticks to whatever it touches: flesh, wood, concrete. The pressure system forces it through the hose and out the nozzle in a controlled stream. In theory. But combat is never theory. You feel every movement of the pack. When you crawl, it shifts. When you run, it slams against your spine. The straps dig deeper into your shoulders with every step. The metal grows hot under the sun, hotter still from nearby explosions. And always, in the back of your mind, there's the same thought: if this gets hit, there is no second chance. The hose is the weakest point. Rubber-lined, fabric-reinforced, flexible so you can aim. Also vulnerable. A single round can rupture it. If that happens while the system is pressurized, fuel sprays instantly, across your chest, your arms, your face. You don't need to be shot again after that. All it takes is one spark. A muzzle flash, a tracer round, burning debris drifting through the air. Even your own pilot flame, the small igniter at the end of the nozzle that keeps the stream burning. Men learn this the hard way. Accounts describe operators suddenly engulfed not by an explosion, but by ignition. Their uniforms catching first, then the fuel-soaked straps, then the pack itself. Flames crawling over them faster than thought. You try to drop the unit. That's what you've been trained to do. There's a quick release mechanism. Pull the handle, shrug out of the straps, let the pack fall away. But training assumes calm. In reality, your hands are shaking. Your gloves are slick with sweat. Sometimes the handle jams. Sometimes the straps twist. Sometimes you fall forward under the sudden imbalance. Sometimes you don't even realize you've been hit until the heat arrives. And heat arrives fast. Survivors would later say there was no pain at first, just pressure. Like the air itself turning solid around you. Your lungs seize. You try to inhale and nothing comes in. Oxygen is gone, consumed instantly by the fire. By the time pain registers, it's already catastrophic. That's if you're conscious at all. Not every hit caused ignition. That uncertainty was its own form of torture. A bullet might punch through one tank and not the other. Fuel might leak slowly, soaking into your clothes without burning. You don't know what's happening until someone screams at you, "You're leaking!" Now you have seconds. Do you run? Do you drop the pack? Do you freeze, terrified that any movement will cause a spark? Every choice feels wrong. Combat reports mention flamethrower operators refusing to move after taking fire, paralyzed by the fear that their next step would be the one that killed them. Officers had to physically shove them forward or pull them back. And the enemy understood this fear better than anyone. They didn't always try to kill you immediately. Sometimes they just hit the tanks enough to make you hesitate, enough to slow the advance, enough to break the momentum of the assault. A stalled flamethrower team meant the bunker stayed active. Machine guns kept firing. Mortars kept dropping rounds. Men around you kept dying. And you knew it was your job to stop it. That pressure, psychological, crushing, relentless, was as deadly as any bullet. You weren't just afraid of dying. You were afraid of failing. Afraid that your fear would cost others their lives. Some operators tried to compensate by firing longer bursts, staying exposed longer than doctrine recommended. They wanted to finish the job quickly, end the threat, get it over with. That made them even more visible. The flame announced your position like a beacon. Smoke rose, heat shimmered. Enemy gunners adjusted their aim. You could almost feel the sights settling on your back. In those moments, the flamethrower stopped being a weapon. It became a countdown. And you never knew how much time you had left. There is a sound men remember more than the explosion. A dull, hollow thump. That's the sound of a bullet striking the tank and not igniting it. Not yet. When you hear it, your heart stops. Not metaphorically, physically. Your body locks in place as your brain races ahead, trying to predict the next half second. You don't know if fuel is leaking. You don't know if pressure is dropping. You don't know if the next spark will come from the enemy or from you. The silence after that thump is unbearable. Combat doesn't pause. Rounds are still cracking overhead. Dirt is kicking up around your boots. Someone is yelling, but you can't make out the words. All you can hear is your own breathing inside your helmet. Loud, fast, shallow. You don't dare fire. If the tank is leaking, squeezing the trigger could turn the nozzle into an igniter for your own death. But if you don't fire, the bunker ahead stays alive. The machine gun inside keeps chewing up the men pinned down behind you. This is the decision point. Some men dropped the pack instantly, even if it meant abandoning the assault. Others kept going, gambling that the tank wasn't compromised. Both choices killed people. Sometimes the same people. Veterans later said the worst fear wasn't the explosion itself. It was not knowing. Unlike a rifleman, you couldn't see your own wound. The tanks were behind you. The hoses ran along your side. Unless someone else told you, you had no idea what state your weapon was in. And in battle, information came late, if it came at all. There are accounts of operators advancing for minutes while leaking fuel, completely unaware. Fuel soaking their trousers, dripping onto the ground behind them, leaving a trail that enemy soldiers could literally follow with a lighter. Sometimes the ignition came from the most mundane sources. A tracer round passing nearby, a burning fragment from a grenade, even a ricochet spark off rock or steel. When it happened instantly. Men described a sudden whoosh, not a bang, but a violent intake of air as the fire consumed everything at once. Flames wrapped around the body faster than the brain could process. Helmets heated until the metal burned skin. Straps fused. Boots caught. If you were lucky, the explosion killed you outright. If you weren't, you lived just long enough to understand exactly what was happening. The human body reacts violently to extreme heat. Muscles contract. Limbs draw inward. Victims sometimes appeared frozen in motion, curled by the fire before they even fell. Medics who reached them, when they could, were often helpless. Severe burns over most of the body were not survivable with 1940s medicine. That knowledge spread quickly among the troops. Flamethrower operators became reluctant volunteers. Some units rotated the role daily to spread the risk. Others relied on engineers, who already faced high casualty rates. In some cases, officers assigned the role by drawing lots. No one wanted it. And yet, every assault still needed one. Because without fire, the bunkers held. Without fire, the caves became death traps for entire platoons. Flamethrowers were not optional. They were essential. That made the psychological toll even worse. You knew your odds. You saw what happened to the man before you. You smelled it. Burned fuel has a distinct odor. sweet and acrid at the same time. It lingered on the battlefield, clinging to clothing and hair long after the flames were gone. Every time you strapped the pack on, you remembered that smell. Some men tried to dull the fear by focusing on mechanics, pressure levels, fuel flow, range. They treated the weapon like a machine problem, not a death sentence. Others joked darkly. Gallows humor became a survival mechanism. But when the shooting started, none of that mattered. Your world narrowed to seconds and meters. The distance to the target, the distance to cover, the distance between you and the next bullet with your name on it. You could feel eyes on your back, enemy eyes, friendly eyes. Everyone watching you move, knowing that if you went down in flames, they might be next. And that pressure, being both the spearhead and the sacrifice, was something no training manual ever prepared you for.
Because when the flamethrower failed, it didn't just fail you, it punished you. Those who survived long enough eventually realized something chilling. The explosion wasn't the worst part. It was what came before it. Every mission began the same way. You watched someone else strap the unit on. You checked the seals, the valves, the hose. You told yourself this one was fine. This one wouldn't leak. This one wouldn't be hit. And every time you were wrong, you learned something new about fear. Veterans later said that flamethrower duty rewired the brain. Your senses sharpened to an unhealthy degree. You felt impacts others ignored. You flinched at sounds no one else noticed. A ricochet too close. A fragment buzzing past your ear. A sudden heat against your back that might have been sunlight, or something worse. Sleep became difficult. When you closed your eyes, you felt the weight of the tanks again. The phantom pressure of straps digging into burned shoulders. Some men woke up convinced they were on fire, tearing at their blankets in panic. The weapon followed you even when you weren't carrying it. Units tried to adapt. Later, flamethrower designs improved marginally. Better seals, more reliable igniters, but the fundamental problem remained. You were still wearing your own funeral pyre. Protection was limited by weight. Range was limited by physics. And the enemy was learning just as fast as you were. By the later stages of the war, flamethrower operators were often assigned escorts whose sole job was to watch their backs. Riflemen positioned themselves slightly behind and to the sides, scanning constantly for anyone trying to line up a shot on the tanks. It helped, but it didn't change the math. A rifle round travels faster than a man can react. You never heard the one that mattered. Some operators tried to detach emotionally. They spoke of themselves in the third person, treated the role like a temporary condition. The flamethrower is moving up instead of I'm moving up. Distance became survival. Others broke under the weight. There are documented cases of men refusing the weapon outright after witnessing an explosion. Officers faced a grim choice: force the issue or find someone else. Either way, morale suffered. Everyone understood what the assignment meant: delayed death. What made it worse was the contrast. When the flamethrower worked, it was terrifyingly effective. Bunkers fell silent. Cave entrances collapsed in fire and smoke. Enemy resistance evaporated in seconds. Lives were saved on one side of the line. That success fed the cycle. The weapon was too useful to abandon, so the men kept carrying it. By war's end, many veterans who had served as flamethrower operators carried scars no one could see. Not just burns, but something deeper. A constant awareness of how quickly life could end. How fragile the barrier was between existence and obliteration. Some later said they felt more relief when the war ended than joy. Relief that they would never again have to feel that weight settle onto their shoulders. Never again have to walk forward knowing that a single bullet, anywhere, from anyone, could erase them. When historians talk about flamethrowers, the focus is often on their psychological impact on the enemy, the fear they inspired, the terror they unleashed. But rarely do we talk about the fear on the other end of the hose.
The man carrying fire didn't feel invincible. He felt exposed, counted down, replaceable.
And every time he stepped into combat, he understood something with absolute clarity. He wasn't just fighting the enemy. He was racing the moment his own weapon would turn against him.